American men. They enjoy lots of different things. Watching their favourite sports team, lassoing a bull, and of course, wrestling. But one thing American men don't enjoy is voting for Kamala Harris. That's at least according to a recent poll, which indicates that she's only on track to win 37% of the male vote, compared to Trump's 53%. To put that into context, in the 2020 presidential election, Joe Biden achieved 48% of the male vote, compared with Trump's 50%. But why is she doing so poorly among men? It could just be the fact that she's a woman, and more conservative parts of America just aren't ready to hear the words Madam President. Now, it's 2024. People aren't just going to blatantly come out and point to her femininity as evidence of her unsuitability. Society has progressed far too much for that. But you don't have to be a psychologist to diagnose the underlying sexism behind the comments, that she's too weak, or she's not ready, or she hasn't got what it takes. But there's another, much deeper issue at hand here that hasn't been addressed. Since the late 1990s, women in America seem to have undergone an ideological shift. From 1999 to 2013, about 30% of women aged 18 to 29 consistently identified as liberal. This increased to 44% by 2020 and back down to 40% in 2023. This 11-point increase in 20 years has meant that the already most liberal subgroup of women were becoming even more liberal. What about the other, less liberal female subgroups? Well, 14% of women aged 65 and older identified as liberal in 1999, but this rose dramatically to 21% by 2013 and 25% by 2023, also an 11-point increase. 1999, these senior women were the least liberal female age group, whereas today they are just as likely to identify as liberal as middle-aged women. In contrast, there has essentially been no long-term change among men aged 18 to 29 and 50 to 64 identifying as liberal, only up 1 point and 2 points respectively. Significant inroads that the Democrats have made is due to a combination of factors. Social media movements like Me Too have raised awareness of sexual misconduct and harassment since 2017, as well as Trump's own sexual assault allegations. What's more important is that as a result of these ideological shifts, women have become an increasingly reliable demographic that has become essential to the electoral success of the Democrats. In 2020, Biden won 55% of women voters, and Hillary Clinton won 54% in 2016. They also turn out in elections much more than men, with women having a turnout of 74.1% compared to men's 71.2% in 2020. So through prioritising issues like LGBTQ rights, gender equality and reproductive rights, Harris is just tapping into that golden formula. Get women out to the polling booths and you'll win. But is this strategy beginning to unravel? And has the influx of new female voters only masked an ideological change in men who have shifted to the right? According to a poll conducted by the Survey Center on American Life, young men are increasingly identifying as conservative and abandoning liberalism. In 2022, 31% of young men identified as conservative, compared to just 24% identifying as liberal. This is a dramatic shift from just 6 years ago, where liberals had the upper hand at 29% and conservatives 26%. The more worrying finding of this study is that more than half of young men believe that they have a harder time in America than their female counterparts. That sentiment comes as no surprise, with American women outperforming men in a variety of environments. They're more likely to go to university, they're better educated, work in growing service industries, and are increasingly earning more. Men, on the other hand, are less likely to be in relationships, less likely to go to university, and have higher rates of... It seems that many young men have become disillusioned with the persistent prioritization of gender equality. During a time when their position in society is dwindling, why should they pay for the privilege their forefathers enjoyed? Instead of addressing these issues, the Democrats seem to be doubling down. Former President Barack Obama scolded that some men aren't feeling the idea of having a woman president. And I doubt the new campaign ad featuring Modern Family actor Ed O'Neill will win the hearts and minds of disillusioned young men.
It's time to be a man. Vote for a woman.
Now, the Democrats are skating on thin ice here. By dismissing the concerns of young men, they run the risk of ceding that ground to a rival who is doing everything he can to appeal to the masculine zeal. Now, Trump's hyper-masculinity is nothing new, i.e. bragging about the size of his manhood, but it seems to have ramped up in the last few weeks. Appearing on numerous bro podcasts like Theo Von and Joe Rogan, and posted a warning on Truth Social claiming that manhood is under attack. Many of Trump's supporters have even tried to conflate a vote for Donald Trump as a vote for manliness, with Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk stating on his podcast that if you are a man in this country and don't vote for Donald Trump, you're not a man. But the push for gender equality isn't the only Democrat policy that men are becoming disillusioned with. In fact, they're not too fussed about any of the key Democrat policies. In the last 20 years, America has made massive strides regarding LGBTQ rights, which has seen a growing number of young people coming out as LGBTQ, radically changing the social lives of young Americans. But the ways in which each gender has experienced these societal changes differs dramatically. 7 out of 10 of young women have a close friend that identifies as LGBTQ, but only half of young men do. This could explain why the Democrats' emphasis on LGBTQ rights over the last 10 years has emboldened female voters, but fallen flat when it comes to men. Abortion is another one of those issues. Now, of course, with the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade, you can't overemphasize the importance female reproductive rights have over the outcome of this election. And it's a free win for Democrats, with both men and women agreeing with the right to choose in overwhelming majorities. 61% for men and 64% for women, to be exact. But where the sexes differ is whether or not they believe that abortion is a critical issue, with just 32% of men believing it is and 61% of women. Now, this is not to say that it is a mistake for the Democrats to highlight these issues in their election campaign. Rather, that their prioritization of policies that skew towards the female vote and the expense of policies which skew to their male counterparts could be the reason for the lack of male enthusiasm for the Democrat ticket. Now, it could be the case that this strategy will pay off just as it did in 2020, with the higher female turnout masking the effects that any loss of a disgruntled male voter might cause. And a disillusioned voter does not equate to a Republican voter. But with Trump's base as ever reliable as it has been, the question remains as to whether the Democrats are able to fill the boots of these lost male voters. Because if they don't, it'll be 2016 all over again.